Daniel, do you want to begin, or I can ask the first question as you want?
I'm happy to start if that's okay.
Okay.
So this is interesting. It's the first time that I'm hosting a panel without either everybody being in the virtual space or me being present in person. It's a very interesting crossover format, and I hope it goes well. Can everybody hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, perfect.
Lovely. Okay, so fascinating talks from Grégory, from Alain, James, Julien, Guillaume, and of course, Cécile. I wish we had a lot more time. We have half an hour to have a panel now, and we've got some really good talking points. So let's have a look. The title of this talk is XR and AI in education in particular, and we heard a couple of mentions of artificial intelligence today. We are looking at predicting the future beyond the fog of war and what that means. So now's the time when we can all become futurists for half an hour as together we look at where we are now and where we might be heading. So just a bit of a summary briefly before we start. There's a real paradox in education at the moment, because even when we have so many transformations occurring with the pandemic and social distancing restrictions, sometimes it can seem that things aren't really changing. You know, are immersive technologies really game changers? I believe they are. I think we all do. But why? Why do we believe that? Are they really going to change pedagogy like we believe they can? Not only in isolated instances, but on a global scale. You know, so what first question to the panel, and I'll maybe we'll start with Grégory. What do you think, as the pandemic is brought under control, how much of the developments we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months will remain? Will people continue to be interested in virtual worlds and virtual reality, or will there be an exodus? Will we want to go back to classrooms, Grégory? What do you think?
Oh, I have my own idea, but the best way I think is to share the idea of panelists. You know, I'm only the moderator. In fact, I have no idea.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there you
silly
go.
Person here. I am a nut.
We don't either.
Yeah. So just one thing.
Let me ask.
Yeah, we
maybe,
have. If people in the room have a question, of course, don't feel free to ask. Of course. So, yeah, first question, Julien, James, Alain. Take your microphone.
Yeah. Okay. So even if it's always difficult to predict what will remain in the future, I think this pandemic pushed a lot of people not definitely convinced of the interest of doing training in VR to try it. And I hope most of them was convinced by the try. So they will continue to use it, even if I think it will be a bit less, because people will go back to an hybridation, having still a bit of physical training, because there is so much things that cannot be taught distantly, remotely. So, for example, with the process we showed just before, it's possible to learn the process. It's possible to learn what is the gesture to be done, but to train the gesture itself, meaning to know the strength you need to do it, to have the right, the exact gesture depending on the wave of all the objects. It will remain simpler to do it physically. So most of our customers are seeing this as a good tool to learn the processes, to learn what to do, and to have only one final physical training. So to reduce the time installation will be dedicated to training.
Yeah.
Yeah, James?
I think I totally agree about what Julian said on many things, because I think with VR we can go faster in training. That's real. And with the pandemic situation, companies have to adapt. That's the thing that we have to keep in mind. We're not in something very on one line, always the same way of training. Is we have to adapt. I think we lived a situation when everything has to be done remotely. Now we don't know what's going to happen by the end of the year. Whether it will be, we can be all together again until the end of the year, whether there'll be another lockdown, we don't know. But now the thing that we do is we will adapt, and we will switch between the kind of technology, working with virtual, remotely, going back to present using virtual reality. But I think it really changed the minds about using these virtual technologies on a new way of processing training.
Well, I do agree with James. I think we are going to enter in a new normal situation. I mean, of course, pandemics has created nothing concerning all this innovation. All the movement has already been existing for a couple of years concerning virtual reality technology or persistent virtual world. And the thing that has changed during the pandemics is that we were not facing anymore on the question of the why we are going to use this technology, but we were focusing on the how we are going to use that. And that's for me the only change concerning the period, because of course things have changed with the pandemics. I mean, we were constrained to make everything remotely. The new normality is going to be like a choice of what we can do remotely or in presence, on-site, on campus. And of course, I hope we will get the choice. But the thing is that as people are focused on the how and not anymore on the why, of course, we can continue to dig new kind of usage, new kind of innovations, and new kind of learning experience. So for me, that's only an accelerating phase, these pandemics. And the thing is that we need now to go far more on how to create value concerning learning experience. And as we have solved the why and we have worked on the how, of course, now we can go on more precise things to create value in learning experience.
Interesting. Thank you very much for your perspective. I have a question. So taking the pandemic out of the equation, because I agree in itself, the pandemic hasn't generated much innovation, and all of us on this panel here have been in the industry long before the pandemic. So just taking that out of the equation and looking at the impact of these technologies on education, do you see the impact more as an evolution or a revolution for education? Is it a natural evolution, just another tool, or is this a fundamental game changer? What do you think?
Again, prediction.
Yeah. Today we're all futurists.
Great.
I will begin. So that we are going this way. You are always in the middle. That's pretty easy for you. Is it an evolution or revolution? I mean, it really depends on the people you are talking to. Of course, we are all digital experts there, and we are like futurist people. And for us, that's only evolution, because we are seeing a lot of new things every year. And we are not surprised anymore by the new power of all of that. I mean, every year things are getting more and more powerful. But if you are addressing the mainstream people or every kind of people outside the Laval virtual event, I think it looks like a revolution, because people don't think that we are living in an exponential period. I mean, things are evolving so fast that it's quite hard for everyone to get at the cutting edge of knowledge around all of that. And if you are not an actor of the technological market, that's really hard to understand what's happening. And before I was talking about climbing on the experiential curve, and that's really important, because if you want to get from 0 to, let's say, 50% of the use of technology, you cannot do it very fast, or you need people like Massive Immersive or other companies that can help you to do it. But if you want to get the best of all this technology, definitely you need to try things and learn on what's happening with all of that. And that's why we are working a lot on this at Neoma, because I do believe that every company is becoming like let's say, a technological company or a software company. And if you are not developing skills around that, every new thing in the market is going to be each time a revolution. But if it's so, it will be really hard for your organization to continue and develop your own path on your market. So you really need to educate people to allow them to get all the skills needed by this technological evolution.
But just to precise, when we talk about evolution of revolution with Daniel, it's not so about the technology, it's much more about people. When you talk about evolution, we can think of adaptation. I'm going to school, I come back to school and I learn skill and something like that. I mean about, I speak about teachers in every domain for the education. But when we talk about revolution, it could be much, much more difficult. And the adaptation is not so sure. So is this mean the revolution or evolution we have in mind?
That's why I was speaking about the culture of the organization. I mean, if you are only on the revolution base, it's going to be really hard for everyone. So you really need to develop all the ingredients to allow the culture of your organization to go much more on this adaptive process, innovative process, on this test and learn, as I said.
It could be the right challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely the first step to do, because then you can work on these different technology.
Yeah, I think I agree with Alain, but one thing I see it like an evolution right now, because using VR for training, it's a new tool. It doesn't change the way we do trainings. We all think about objective, target, and so on. It's a new way of doing training. Before, when e-learning arrived, we used to do something very differently, only on-site. There is a commodity. It was a tool. It's a new tool. For me, it will be a revolution, according to what Alain said, when it's going to be really mainstream. When everybody will be talking about VR not as, okay, it's something we want to implement because it's innovative. When it will be in the DNA of, I don't know, companies, schools, wherever, using XR for training, then it will be a revolution. We're not at this place right now because there's so much work to do, just to reassure that it works. You can do some amazing things. You gain time, you can gain money. But you have to think already as training, objectives, target. If you start to do it using VR only without doing what you're going to do with that, it won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I quite agree with a few things there. So I think one evolution is the scale and the time we need to try things. Because a few years before, we needed a lot of time to do an experimentation with heavy materials and expensive materials. And now we are able to test things in production. And this is maybe the big evolution in the last years. About the impact for training. No, I don't see a revolution. I see an evolution. There is teacher previously showing slide in a physical amphitheater. Now showing slides in a virtual one. So this is an evolution, and this is providing us a new way to do the same thing. However, I think some problems, some limitation we have in our physical trainings, physical course, will be changed by those kind of experiences faster. So for example, there is so much training sessions in the university that are not so interactive with slides and a professor speaking for 2 hours without having any interactions with the student. And this is not possible in VR. In about 20 minutes, the students will shut down the headsets and stop hearing anything. So it will we will have to make a revolution in the way we teach to make it very more interactive. And VR enables us to do it, but I think the main game changers will be our ability to create VR adapted content teaching material, not 2D but 3D, enabling students to try things, to experience things much more than previously, and to do the training session very more interactive. But this is not there currently.
I think the revolution might come from somewhere different. I have a 12-year-old son who, like many kids, likes Minecraft. And nowadays, almost every kid can be a YouTube creator. And certainly if he wants to know something, he will go to Google and probably go to YouTube first to learn it. And half of the content created is by other young people like him. And once this generation develops the skills and understands the content creation tools the way they do with YouTube now and websites now, once that becomes natural for them, they will teach themselves, each other and themselves, using spatial technologies before they go to YouTube, before they ask their parents, before they read books, and even as a preference to going to school. I think that might be the revolution. And then in combination with this whole generation of kids who are doing this, once you add artificial intelligence and the content creation and into the mix, I think that might be where the revolution comes from. It's not necessarily from us enterprises. It's from almost letting this technology out into the wild, and it becomes a beast that we don't anticipate yet.
Thanks, Daniel. Sorry, I am the bad guy, so I have to ask the question. You know, we have an education system in France and in every country. Do you think this education system is ready for that revolution?
Nowhere near.
The answer is no.
Are you asking me? I would wait for the panelists.
I think I have 4 answers. No.
No, definitely no. So I think I was at school still 5 years ago, and I think some teachers still do not have a digital support for their
in their mind
for the course. So definitely no.
Yeah, I think we're gonna give it to the expert because about education, you know more about companies. But
remember, we have to be optimistic. It's in your contract.
Yeah. Let's try to be optimistic. No, I would say that we have some troubles about education. We say that between earlier stage and so on, because we have to change the way we educate our children. But that's a long discussion. I think we're like 2 hours. It won't stop, you know.
Yeah.
But I think we're not ready so far. And I think the solution that you presented, according to what just Daniel said, it could be something that could be in the future a game changer. Because what he said is like, okay, peer-to-peer training, people about to create their own content. Today, to do some VR, you have to use Unity, Unreal Engine, or whatever. So you have to be a developer. But such as tools that are being done by Inetum, it could be in the future. Not that in the future we'll be able to create our own content in VR, and that would be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about Minecraft. It's not so in the future.
Yes, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see two things. So the first step is to make the trainers able to create their own content, but that's not the revolution. The real revolution is where we will go from, just like in the industry, from when we will change from top-down communication to the reverse. So having a student creating content and proposing content to the teachers, that will be the revolution.
The thing is that if we are, we want to be a bit more precise in the answer. Of course, globally, the education system is not ready for that. The thing is that if you are looking in higher education, you got some examples of good schools that are trying things, or universities, and I mean worldwide, of course in France, but also worldwide. But the thing is that it's again a matter of culture, because you got some schools or universities that are running innovations, trying things, going on the test and learn curve and so on. But when you are looking on the primary school, when you are looking on the very first, let's say 15 to 20 years of people, of children, of professeurs des écoles, they are not working on this at all. I mean, we are speaking a foreign language for them. And the thing is, if we are not working on this part, of course, it's going to be very hard for a country if we are not getting a good enough digital culture for all young generations. It's going to be very hard, to make this revolution happening. And that part is very hard because, of course, we, as parents here, I think we are providing all the tools and knowledge around digital things. I mean, my own child, who is 12, is working with Unity and Unreal Engine, but how many of children of his age are trying things on this kind of tool? I mean, not a lot of them. And basically, I think if we want to create this revolution in education, we need to work, of course, on higher education, business schools, engineering schools, universities, but also on all these primary cycles.
Okay, we have a question in the room.
Okay, thank you for your interesting question, especially, the revolution. I'm trying to make a flashback about the last 15 months within my classes, and before the pre-COVID era was, those who are digitally addicted, those who love the technology, they were a minority. We were working in a light way, we were effective, we were efficient, we could achieve any project to implement a new technology within the small community very easily. When people were forced, especially students and senior instructors were forced to use the virtual environment, we faced a very big slowdown in terms of implementation. So if I compare the pre-COVID era, we were faster than we are doing it during the COVID. We discovered that it was a matter of culture. The digital adoption of the tools, and to think in a digital environment, we still have the same mindset as you've just said, that the minority of the teenagers are adopting these technologies. So the big question for me is how to drive this culture within the university or the high school. I think that some success stories could help us, instead of thinking in macro, maybe in micro we can give or we can share some tips. Thank you.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure. So it's an interesting, how do we drive the adoption within education? And again, I think I would agree that our education systems, for the most part, aren't quite up to speed. But kids are, I say it again, kids are learning even about these concepts, even if they're not learning it at school. So through gaming consoles, PlayStations, Xboxes, they understand spatial things. Even if they're not wearing a headset, they understand spatial technologies. Minecraft is a spatial thing, very, very creative. Snapchat and mobile phones and the AR content coming there. So kids are being exposed. And when I say kids, I mean, student age people are being exposed to these concepts and these technologies outside of education already. And this trend of young people to learn on YouTube is an exponential thing that, from my observation, I think that we're gonna see more of that with XR content. And yeah, it really is up to education and the cultures on a national level, on a local, regional, and institutional level to embrace it and to catch up. But because young people, this technology is out there around us and around them. And if they don't learn it at school, they will just learn it for themselves because it's so engaging and it's in their face all the time. It's on all of our screens all the time. It's coming to Facebook, it's coming to Twitter, it's coming to Snapchat and TikTok. This technology is alive around us. And it really is up to educational institutions to catch up, in my opinion.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's time to conclude. So usually I ask the last word. Optimistic, remember? Daniel, your last word?
My last word
or a
is
sentence.
Hold tight. Hold tight. Put your seatbelts on. We're in for an exciting ride. My last word is, may you learn in interesting times. There's a Chinese proverb which says, may you live in interesting times. I believe, may you learn in interesting times. We're in for a very, very entertaining future.
Julien, last word.
It's always difficult to have a last one.
Yeah, I know. But I'm the bad guy, so I can ask.
And an optimistic one. So yeah. So I think we arrive in a very interesting period because the material, the software, anything is ready to do amazing thing about training in VR. And as you said previously, we now need to try. And to try without frontier.
Okay, I gotta find something now. I would say remain flexible because we're in a really changing time. We have to adapt. We used to adapt. We still have to continue. But it's really a specific moment with new technologies arriving, new things arriving, new way of working, new ways of training. All that make us think differently. And I think I don't want to emphasize the actual situation, but we don't know how long it's going to last. I have to say optimistic. I'm sorry. So I would just want to say, okay, we don't know what the future is, but let's get the best of it.
Perfect.
And I will take the quote of Peter Drucker because I do like this one. We are living in a time and a period of turbulence, but don't be afraid about the turbulence. The danger is not the turbulence. The danger is the way you act, is the way you think, is the way you do it every day. And of course, if you are acting like yesterday, you will lose that. And of course, you will be in great danger. But if you are thinking in terms of innovation, in terms of try and fail fast, in terms of all these test and learn and design thinking, way of thinking, believe me, you will feel much more comfortable. And of course, that's just a mindset because everything is changing so fast that you cannot be true every time. But that's really French or European to think, okay, in terms of innovation, I need to lower my risk. But if you never take risk, you never innovate. So take risk.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you. Many thanks, Daniel, for your help.
Thank you, Daniel.
Many
Thanks,
thanks
Daniel.
for all of us.
Thank you very much. Great to see you guys. Next time I'll be there in person.
I hope,
Yeah,
yeah.
We'll shake hands even.
Yeah, sure.